Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to tonight's meetup. We have an amazing crowd here, and thank you all for coming despite the weather. So before we begin, I would like to introduce myself. Some of you have still not met me. My name is Margie Ramos, and I'm a new co-organizer of the Toronto SaaS Meetup Group, or Toronto Software as a Service Meetup. And I'm also a marketing and sales coordinator for Block 64, which is a technology and services company that is focused on helping CIOs and other IT leaders make the right decisions in software licensing, infrastructure management, as well as cloud migration. Now, something more interesting about me other than what I do for a living, well, I'm from Montreal, and I moved here to Toronto a year and a half ago to join the thriving tech scene here. And I am also trilingual. I speak English, obviously, as well as Tagalog, which is a Filipino language, for you who doesn't know it is, and in French. I had to learn how to speak French growing up in Montreal. Now, for today's meetup, I will get to sit down with John O'Landon, CEO and founder of Hoobly, to discuss the benefits of targeting a niche market for software as a service companies and why SaaS companies should be doing it. So Hoobly, for those who don't know what it is a CRM for small private schools across North America. Some of the things that I will get Jono to share with us is how defining and focusing on a niche market has helped him grow his own software as a service company. Please note that there will be a Q&A in the end of our live and recorded conversation, so everyone in the audience, as well as those who are remotely watching the live discussion, get to participate and ask questions. Please note that this fireside chat and the Q&A will be recorded and will be uploaded on YouTube. Now everyone, please welcome John O'Landon.
Thank you. It was wonderful. Thanks, Margie. Thanks for coming, everybody. Nice to see you all here.
Yeah, we have an awesome crowd here today. So a lot of people showed up because they want to learn about the benefits of targeting a niche market when it comes to software as a service companies, and also to learn from your experience with that. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of targeting a niche market and its benefits, can you please tell us something interesting about yourself?
Okay, so I think the thing that's probably most interesting about me is I didn't start out as a software person. Actually, I grew up focusing on like the performing arts. I went to performing arts high school, and I got a degree in jazz performance. And when I was 21, I was actually part of this orchestra where we won like a youth world youth music competition. So I'm a world champion musician.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Hearing someone clapping there.
Yeah.
Now, as everyone already know, and like what I said earlier, you're the founder and CEO of Hoobly.
That's right.
So can you please tell us more about what your company really does, other than it is a CRM for small private school? Can you please elaborate on that?
Sure. So the reason why I created Hoobly is because I saw that there was a big problem with communication in the education sector. So I had an opportunity to start looking at problems, for problems to solve in the pre-K through 12 education world, and I very quickly noticed that parent engagement is like sort of the holy grail. So everyone's talking a lot about it. There's Twitter is going crazy about parent engagement, and there's a lot of academics doing a lot of research about it and how important it is, and how it has incredible impacts for the outcomes for students when parents are engaged. So I went looking for why is this such a big problem, and really it came down to some kind of some basics around communication management that aren't really happening well in the education sector. So when we first launched Hubly, it was really about trying to, so we called it Hubly because we wanted to create a hub. So what we saw was schools were using a patchwork of like 20 to 30 different communication tools. So, because schools are, they're businesses, but they're run by teachers. So these aren't people that have MBAs, they're not people that learn how to use marketing tools. Really when it comes down to it, parent communication is just customer, relations, right, for a school. So really when you take a look, so what schools were doing is they were using every kind of communication marketing tool you name. They're using it because they're trying to keep up with the demands of the parents, and they're patching together all these tools, and then every teacher is using their own little patchwork of communication tools, and parents end up having 20 different streams of communication, mostly repetitive. 90% of it's irrelevant to them because everyone's just sending everything through every channel, and they're basically training parents to ignore them. So if you could imagine any business having this it's like schools are, they're businesses and they're not businesses, right? Like what other kind of businesses like where customers have to be there and where customers will like fight through 100 horribly written long emails to find information. Like you'd lose your customers pretty quickly in any other industry, right? So schools are kind of like remarkably getting, their customers are fighting through this, but for the most part they're just making their lives really difficult. Not because they want to, but just because they don't know really what they're doing. And the IT people that work at schools are not necessarily like the cream of the crop from Stanford. Like they're, the folks that work do IT at schools are usually just somebody that said, oh, I'll do it, and they know a couple of things about Microsoft Word, and then they become the IT expert. And so, as you can imagine, things are challenging, and they're still using insane amounts of paper. With all the truth is, these schools would be way better off if they just reverted back to 100% paper, because at least parents would have consistency and standardization and know what to expect and know where to go for information. But now they don't even have that. So, in any event, so this whole sort of, it's a whirlwind, a patchwork of a haphazard sort of, communication structure, and it's just it's across the board. So. That's what Hubly is. We took the components of all these different communication tools and put them into one hub. So the schools kind of got one database, because every single one of those communication tools is a separate database. So they have one database with all the little valuable bits from Facebook and Twitter and Google and SurveyMonkey and all the things that they've been trying to use, kind of put into one place contextually. That was our mission with Hubly originally, yeah.
So since we're talking about targeting a niche market, and we know that Hubly is for small private schools across North America, but what kind of small private schools?
Yeah, so obviously already when you're looking at the school sector, that's a niche in and of itself, because again, really, when I say Hubly is a CRM for private schools, I don't say that to our customers because they don't know what a CRM is. So really, it's a CRM, but we call it something else to them, something that they just kind of naturally get. But when we first started working on the school sector, that in itself is a niche, obviously, because a CRM, CRMs could be for all sorts of markets, and there's all sorts of niche CRMs out there. But even within the school market, public schools and private schools while they have a lot of similarities, especially around parent communication, and a lot of similar challenges, they do have distinct challenges, and their challenges are kind of weighted differently, right? So, when you're putting like, so I have a long history of product management, and when I build a product, I try to understand for every market, like, a lot of markets need similar features, but they prioritize them differently, right? So a private school has different needs than a public school does. So as an example, they both they actually both need payment processing because parents in public school pay for a lot of trips and pizza lunches and a lot of incidentals. But in private schools, parents pay for those and they pay for tuition. But in a private school, tuition is like the most important thing in their lives. If they don't have tuition, they don't have a school. They're not publicly funded. So the prioritization of a tuition system bubbles right to the top very, very quickly, as an example. So the more we were originally working with all kinds of schools, we found a good fit between our just sort of our natural inclination towards marketing and sales, because selling to private schools is different than selling to public schools, and that just fit with me better. So like it's just small B2B SaaS sales funnels is something that like I've been doing well for a long time. Whale hunting, selling to the TDSB, where it takes like 2 years to get a sale, is not my wheelhouse. So I didn't try to go that route because I went for the path of least resistance. And so we just found that like with the culture of the company and the needs and just this fit that we were having, we were selling successfully to public schools and private schools, but we just saw there was this much simpler path through with private schools. So that's the way we went.
All right. And so what are the benefits of targeting the niche market based on your experience with Hubly?
So with Hubly, I would say right around the time when I started realizing I really needed to pick either public schools or private schools and sort of become an expert in either one of those sales experiences, I read the book Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. So if anyone hasn't read that, it's and you're in SaaS, it's like read it right away. It's a phenomenal book. Even if you haven't read it, you've probably heard a lot of concepts from it. But the thing that really struck me, and I'll just give a very quick synopsis. The point of the book is crossing the chasm. As there's a technology adoption sort of arc that that a lot of people know about. Early adopters, mainstream market, and then the late adopters. So there's a chasm. Like the real challenge for a new innovative company, technology company, adoption-wise, is going from early adopters, from like enthusiasts into like the visionaries, and then getting into the more pragmatist side. So there's a big difference between the early adopter ramp up and then going into the mainstream market, because pragmatists like to have a lot of proof, and you're coming into a market where there's well-rooted competition, and they want safety, and they want to cover their butts when they make a decision at work and things like that. So one of the main points of the book is when you're, because he kind of uses the analogy of war, so to speak, like you're going into a pretty busy war zone where there's a lot of competitors, there's incumbents, and you're coming in to disrupt something, and that's not easy to do. So if you think about the analogy that Jeff Moore uses is storming the beachhead. So when the Allied forces stormed Normandy, they had to take the beach first. So the beachhead market is something that is really, really critical, and I guess it's just like my sort of personality. When I read books that make sense, especially when they have a bit of a framework around them and a sort of a pragmatic process, I like to really drink the Kool-Aid and try it out. And so I did that. So I started looking at the different kind of customers we had, and I saw that within private schools, which is a pretty big market in and of itself, within private schools we had a bunch of customers that were Montessori schools, and so when you're looking for a beachhead, there's some elements you want to find. So you want to make sure that because again, you're going into the mainstream market, you're going into a market of people that are more pragmatic, and they're not looking to be visionaries, right? They're just looking to get their job done and keep everybody happy. So you want to find a market that is small enough that you can actually come in and make some influential relationships, get some channel partnerships, and the more you can focus, narrow your focus down to understand the profile of. So in our situation, Montessori schools they're private schools, just like all other private schools. They're very similar. I mean, you wouldn't know there's a difference unless you went into the school and sat in the classroom and saw how they approach educating kids. But so they have a particular, Montessori is just, it's a pretty large market actually. So there's about 30,000 Montessori schools worldwide. There's about, between the US and Canada, it's probably about 7,000, and there's about probably 20,000 in Europe. So it's a growing market, and it's a market that's getting a lot of, it's growing in just popularity and acceptance, and it's nothing kind of weird. It's not like a religion or anything. It's just this lady Maria Montessori came up with she came up with a philosophy around educating kids, and it's really picked up, and so, but they're just schools, right? So one of the elements you want to look for in a beachhead is that they're a referencing market. So Montessori schools have their own associations. So you can go to Montessori conferences in different states or national ones. There's a few national ones, but those schools that go to Montessori conferences also go to other kind of school conferences. So they're also just schools like all the other schools. So when you become so we're well known in the Montessori world now, and because I've focused on it, I've actually developed strategic partnerships, and even strategic investors with the largest and most influential Montessori, luminaries and organizations. Like the largest Montessori teacher training company owns shares of Hubley now. And interestingly enough, they started out as customers. So like really, everything that I've done is like the textbook example of what Jeffrey Moore was talking about with crossing the chasm. And I guess I was lucky that I found some good Kool-Aid to drink, but it's really worked out wonderfully. And interestingly, we get a lot of non-Montessori schools signing up because nothing we actually do as a product or a service is specific to Montessori. We've just created this referencing market. So we appear much bigger than we are because everyone's like, oh, those are those really popular Montessori guys. Nothing in our product is Montessori, but people come into our marketing funnels that are not Montessori schools. They're just Christian schools or Jewish schools or boarding schools. They have nothing to do with Montessori or anything, and they're totally unaffiliated, but they attend our webinars, and I happen to say this applies to all schools, not just Montessori schools, because I want them to know that, and they sign up, but what's happening is that because I'm so focused on marketing to Montessori, my marketing metrics have improved so much because I'm getting such a great, because one of the other benefits of focusing on a niche is that there is lingo in the Montessori world, and they do have common challenges that other schools don't have. These are very subtle, nuanced things, but when you really learn the language of this particular very little niche market, they really appreciate that too. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get to, but you do have to make sure that this market is not too small, so it has to be big enough that even if you don't go beyond it, you make a lot of money. So it has to be a big enough market, ideally a growing market, but small enough that you can go to a conference, as an example, and make a really strong strategic relationship that ends up, catapulting you. So you want to be looking for, those kind of elements, and those are the benefits of this beachhead approach.
All right. Wow, that was very detailed.
Good.
And that's good. So your niche markets are Montessori schools or private schools?
Yeah. So our niche is. So when I talk to investors, I do say, we are a CRM for small private schools, which is 80% of the private school market is small. So really it's a CRM for private schools, and we have some pretty large private schools that use this as well, of course, but again, that's our niche. But our marketing strategy is this beachhead marketing strategy where we focus on, so if you go to our website, it doesn't say anything about Montessori. We're not positioned or branded as a Montessori product, but it is how we market. So it's when I spend money to reach out to my market, I have a really great impact with really good conversion rates because I've honed in on a niche that's, that responds, because I've tested value propositions and language and things like that. And it's a lot easier the smaller your market is to get to optimize, every stage in your funnel.
Got it. So how do you know when you found your niche market? How long should you stay focusing on one niche market? And when do you know when to pivot? Should you stay with them for a year? What if you're starting to lose money after a year and a half or after 2 years? Should you stick with them and be perseverant and be like, there's money to be making here?
Yeah.
How do you know that this is the right niche market?
I would say if you're really giving, I would say if you've given it like a really solid focus and you don't see any positive, at least incremental improvements on your marketing funnel in a few months, you might, and you've given it you've given it a good try, put your solid attention into it, then I would say it's probably time to consider if you're on the right path or not. It should be, I find that these types of results are pretty quick, meaning you should see some results after a few test runs. You should start to see some you want to when you're creating a test, you have to set up your test properly and come up with some hypotheses and some outcomes that you're going to test against. So you can be reasonable, but I would say you got to make sure you're going in the right direction. If you're not seeing a result from it, then I would say give it 3 months, and again and full-time focus.
And what are the disadvantages of not having a defined niche market and not targeting one either? Because there are software service companies who don't seem to have a niche market. They're a bit everywhere. They're serving all industries, all markets.
Right. And that's not wrong for every company. I don't want people to think that you should never or only niche always. I just think that there's great benefits to it, especially for bootstrap companies. But I think even for most funded companies, they should probably take a niche approach. And by the way, going niche doesn't mean you can't plan, or it can't be your business plan to go very horizontal. But why wouldn't you first grow a very healthy core business? Before you sort of move. So the idea for a lot of companies is they build these multiple S-curve growth strategies where they move from, they have like a CRM is a great example. CRM is great for schools, and then it's good for summer camps, and it's good for nonprofit organizations, and they keep, these are very similar businesses. They're all different niche markets, and they have their own idiosyncrasies and nuances that you have to. It's better if you focus on one at a time, but there are also good examples of public companies that do all of them at the same time because they have, they're public or they're just really well funded, so that they can, they have the resources to actually do that properly. But I would say the disadvantages that I've seen, first for myself and for other companies that other CEOs that I know in mastermind groups and things that I meet with. I'm the guy that's always hounding everybody to niche down. I'm like, oh, here comes Jono again. He's going to talk about niching. And a good friend of mine, I won't label his company or anything, but I've finally convinced him to do it. There's 3 companies in Toronto that have started off really, really broad, and it's the same. I see everybody hitting the same wall. They go very, very. See, when you're getting out of the enthusiast early adopter market, and you're going into this pragmatist market, It's incredibly, you waste so many resources trying to figure out all these different markets. It takes so much to understand each different market. And like, I sat down with somebody recently, and he's got a decent technology, and it's got a few obvious applications in different markets. One of them is for young children, and the other one is for seniors. So it's like very different markets. There's actually some interesting commonality with them, but very different markets still. And he's got this hardware, and he's got this SaaS platform around it, and he just keeps on finding new avenues and new applications to take this technology and customize it for those different markets and different use cases. And I sat down with him. I'm like, because this is a guy that he's very, very good. He's very different than me. He's very talented at networking and going into really big companies, enterprise whale hunting. Like, he's really good at that. So he keeps on doing that because that's his natural inclination. But I asked him, I was like, hey, if you, like, he's got this, one of his products is like a perfect, and this is the one product he has, which is just totally wrapped in a box, top to bottom, complete solution, and it's perfect for retirement homes. And it's selling to retirement homes. And it's just working kind of naturally. And I said, if you just sat down a year ago and did nothing but focus on retirement homes, you'd have hundreds of retirement homes using your product right now. Would you rather be there today or where you are right now? And he's like, oh, I would much rather have 300 retirement homes using this thing. Because, and it's so easy to do that when you focus on one customer. When you solve one problem for one person, you can ramp up, you can improve your conversion rates by multiples. And that's been my experience as well. Even with Hubly as a platform, as I was kind of talking about it, so we were solving too many problems for too many people, even inside my niche market. So we were doing this for public schools, we were doing it for private schools, and then we narrowed down, we niched down into private schools, and then, so there's marketing niching, and then there's also product niching, right? So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it really comes down to resources and wanting to get the business to be healthier. So we were running into this problem where we were kind of growing in fits and spurts because our ability to sell the product was outpacing our ability to get our market successfully onboarded, because again, our market is like really like on the tail end of like late adopters. They're not looking to rock the boat, but they know they have a lot of problems they need a solution for. So when somebody kind of tells them the story, it's like our sales experiences, we're teaching them that they actually have problems. Like, they know that's not true. They know they have problems. They kind of know their hair is on fire because they can kind of smell the smoke, but they can't really understand where the smoke is coming from, but they know they've got some problems and it's getting hot up there. So we just kind of lift up the mirror in front of their face, and then they actually see, oh, yeah, that's my hair, that's on fire. So our product is the water, essentially. But we were solving, but again, these people aren't sophisticated business people, they're wonderful educators. So it wasn't actually, so we got really good at selling to them, but getting them to adopt technology was not easy. And we were solving a lot of problems we were going very broad in the platform. We kept on going wider and wider and solving more and more problems, and then we kind of buried ourselves under this customer success challenge. So we got to the point where I said, okay, well, either I need to raise a whole bunch of money, or I need to figure out something. And I was thinking about this for a while, and so we basically, what we did is we took our product, and so we haven't changed our product, but we started instead of solving 10 problems for 10 different people, we solved one problem for one person. And so we took really the most painful and obvious problem in the market, that's the most, the biggest problem in the market, which was one of the things we were solving, which is kind of like solved by one component or one use case of our platform, and we went deeper with that, and that allowed us to start selling. That improved all of our metrics by multiples. Now we close deals in one call. Used to be an average of 4 calls. We close deals, like our lead to close rate is now 7 days. Used to be 3 months. Like, we used to have to do so many painstaking demos just to get, and also by shortening all that stuff, we also increased our revenue per customer by over 100%. Literally every metric just shot through the roof. And that's because we had already started niching down on the Montessori schools, and then we niched down into actual problems. So the business just became so much healthier, and we were able to start growing, far faster, and also the resources it took to onboard the customers successfully and get them to a successful place was reduced by 90% as well, because now we're just dealing with one person and one particular use case, and everything that they need to do with our platform, we can now just template, and it spins it up right away rather than having to teach them how to build it into the platform themselves. Because one of the main features we have is marketing automation with automated workflows. Try to get a teacher to figure out how to use marketing automation. It's not an easy thing to do, and we learned that the hard way. So now they don't have to learn it because it's just they start from done, and it's they just need to customize 2% of it. So and I can give a whole bunch of examples. Another company I know is they have got a project management platform, and they're at the same place. They're further along than us, but they've found that there's a couple of markets. So they go really horizontal. It's project management platform for enterprise companies. So it's very complex. It does a lot of things, but they found that there's 2 markets that when I really pushed the CEO to think about a niche market, when I started telling him wouldn't you rather hire people that were much less skilled and able to produce a better outcome for your customers, because every customer needs to use the product the same way. So when everybody needs to use the product the same way, your customer success team members, which are the people that really, get the customers up and running, don't have to be that. They don't need to be 20 years, consulting experience. They can just be, fresh grads and trained, and to do certain things. Everyone's getting the same thing, and so everything becomes more efficient. And so now he's picking one of those markets, and they're going to go after it. Another one I know is a social media. What do they do? Social media, analytics. So now they're picking a particular market to go into because, it helps on the product, but it's the marketing too. It's when you understand, when you're okay, we're going to do social media analytics for marketing agencies or something. You know what I mean? It's now you can set up one funnel that works, as opposed to having to figure out, a funnel for every different market you want to go into. Building a funnel and optimizing a funnel, a marketing funnel, takes serious resources, time and effort, a lot of risk. So when you can just get one going the right way and it doesn't slow down your growth, and you're growing faster, and there's no end in sight, why wouldn't you do that? I just can't think of a reason why you wouldn't do that. So it is important on that note to make sure that you're not going to hit a ceiling too soon. So you got to look at the market and say, how far can I go here, right?
Wow, that's a lot of very good examples there. Yeah, so what advice would you give to sales and marketing professionals, and also sales and marketing professionals who work for companies, whether it's a startup or an SMB, who are working in these companies that don't really have a niche and they know that they need to niche down?
Well, so you're saying someone that's working there and not the CEO. So
yeah, exactly. So for example, a sales and marketing coordinator, or maybe a director, right?
Right.
And they're they don't really have a niche. They know they should niche down. But then their CEO is a bit like all over the place.
Right.
They want to target everything. They want to be everything.
Yeah.
They want to take over the world.
I would say leave and start your own company. That's what I did. Yeah, I mean, so it's really tough. So everybody's different. My advice would be really check yourself to make sure that you have the personality to lead from the middle, because that's a really hard thing to do. And I would say come prepared with a lot of data. You have to think of it like it's your own company and you're the startup and you're going to your investors and you put up a full pitch deck together for it. And then if you're going to do that, you might as well just go get investors and do it yourself. Because, why not? But in any event, not everybody is, that entrepreneurially minded. Probably everybody here is. But I would say, like and you know what? And if you put that deck together and there's no good reason not to do it, and your CEO still doesn't, or your executive still just doesn't do it, and and you're not sold that it's a bad idea, that the company shouldn't do it, I would say leave. Like what? Like I know I can't work in an environment where I don't believe in the people that I'm working for. Like has always been sort of my problem. In the past I've been sort of unemployable just because I have a hard time working for people that I don't believe in. So like I'm not the best guy to ask for advice on this, because I'm just like, yeah, quit, just start your own company. But I know not everybody can just do that tomorrow. But yeah, I guess ultimately that's probably my real advice on that, is just do it yourself. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's a pretty good advice. I guess that's also the reason why there are a lot of entrepreneurs, right? They just can't work for anyone, like you.
Right. I find it very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can start the Q&A now.
All
right. Do we have anyone here in the audience who would like to ask Jono some questions? All right, we have a gentleman here. What is your name, sir?
Yeah, pass the mic over.
Armand. Here, I'll give you my phone. Microphone.
I don't think we need this, but...
No, we do, because then you'll be picked up.
Right. Why did the revenue go up per customer when you specialized?
Yeah, because we narrowed down the scope of what our platform was, what problems we were solving, and we were able to go deeper on the value by taking our resources, our customer success resources and our support resources, and layering on some I didn't coin this term, but they're called productized services. So just as an example, so one of the main use cases of Hubly was like as a CRM. They didn't know they were using it like a CRM, but they were, and it is. So, but that's the software component, right? That's the communications management. So what we did is also, because we had a lot of validation that the market wanted it, and they were actually asking for us over a year to provide a Facebook ad lead gen service. So now, because we were working with such a narrow market, enrollment lead gen campaigns for Montessori schools is something that you can essentially get right one time and clone for every other customer. So we then were able to offer far more value, and of course value is you price things on the perceived value of the buyer, right? So we could just clone an existing campaign that's working really well, and it works, and we're charging for them as if we're like a marketing agency, working for them from scratch, but we're not. So and we don't charge like we're a marketing agency. Actually, we are cheaper, but we were able to increase our revenue per customer by over 100% by layering that on top, and it's just as scalable as software.
So your input cost on what they were paying was way lower.
Way lower, far lower.
But were you charging more for those services?
Yes.
Oh, you were charging
Yes.
more also.
Yeah, it worked. It went both ways.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, very fantastic. Yeah, it was very exciting to see that happen. Yeah, literally overnight. I created I just did a marketing. I just sent an email out to the list. Said, okay, we're going to pilot this thing that everyone's been asking for. Here's a form to sign up for it, and it just I was just closing customers in one call for over twice as much as I've ever charged them, and it was pretty cool.
Did you reduce the feature set in the offering after that?
Yeah,
or
so
you just kept it there?
it's just there, but we're just not supporting it, right? So and they're not being sold on it. So yeah, technically they have access to those features, but they're not using it. Yeah.
So we have another gentleman here who would like to ask a question. What's your name, sir?
Have you got negative feedback from the instructional staff in particular, which in a private school, knowing that it's a business, would be extremely unlikely, but I'm still very unclear what it actually specifically does, and that's a big first question. But the real concern I have is the technology that a private school, if they're wealthy enough for the tuition, they're wealthy enough to track, as you said, and follow their sons and daughters. So what's this big deal about a communication tool that, you're showing them the light of the day? I don't necessarily agree with that. So, the technology is so pervasive and immersive that why they need more or additional or other software eludes me. I don't understand that. And especially because you didn't explain what Hubly specifically does that's unique or distinctive, can contrast to other software or even to other standard traditional, email, cell phone, mobile phone, whatever. I'm very unclear. Want to clarify that?
Sure. Okay. So there's a few different questions I think in there. So where to start? So this is a product that's like I said, we were solving a lot of problems for a lot of people. So for the parents and the teachers and the administrators. Now we're really just solving a problem for the administrators. So it's it's a tool that's used by the school administration to help them be found by and manage the communication process with prospective parents that they don't know, and these administrators aren't well trained on marketing, so they don't really know how to get these parents into the school for tours, which is how they sell their school. So we're just helping them connect with parents in their area that are looking for a school like theirs.
There's you haven't heard a word about any negative response as to the disadvantages of Hubly for learning or education or teaching or anything of that nature?
Sure, yeah. Well, we don't really deal with, it's not education technology in that we don't, we're not a tool that the teachers use to educate the kids. So that it's just not really relevant. But if you wanted to learn more about Hubly, I can certainly direct you to some content online, for sure.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Anyone else? Also, that gentleman there raised his hand earlier also. What is your name?
Oh, hi, I'm Simon.
Hey, Simon.
I came in a bit late, but we were talking to a prospective client, so we have an excuse.
Good reason.
My question is, how long did it take you, you may have said this, we might have missed it, but how long did it take you to break even in terms of your business? And did you have a plan for that, or did it just come sooner or later? That's my first question. And then my second question is, what's your overall exit strategy? Is it kind of here 5 years, 7 years, all this kind of thing? But I'd be interested to find out a bit more.
Sure. So break even is something that wasn't, I kind of always broke even because when I launched Hubly, I didn't do so until I was able to start selling it. So it was a side hustle until I had enough customers that I could rely on the sales. So I really started in the I didn't really give my history, but I started out in sales and marketing in the early 2000s in the internet world. So that's and then I became more technical and then moved into product management. But sales and marketing has always been a very strong suit of mine. So I once I was able to get Hubbly 1.0 out the door, I could start selling it. So it was never really, I was always funding everything through my sales, and I never really dipped down. Well, that's not true. I mean, more recently I did. Once we hit a certain milestone, I felt it was time to put some money in. And so, there was never, like, I didn't raise any money, and I didn't really have a burn rate that I was working against. I was always able to, it was always tracking, like head to head with revenue and expenses.
All right. And we have another.
Oh, sorry.
Go
The exit part.
The exit part.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll see where it goes. But I don't have a particular year in mind.
All right. And what's your name, sir?
Hi, I'm Sean. Hey, John. Thanks for coming out, man. Just a quick question. So when you were starting out Hubbly, what was the process of interviewing Montessori schools and finding out that you had a solid product that solved their hair being on fire kind of thing? And how long did that take? And
Yeah, so I started doing that in 2012. I think it was 2012, and it was really like the only thing I was doing. So I would say I probably had about maybe 40 or 50 conversations, and at that time it wasn't specifically Montessori. It was just like anybody in schools, like parents, really all the adults, like parents and teachers and administrators, and then I was able to, you ask people and you learn all the problems that they're experiencing, and then you try to map them out, and sort of find the themes, like groupings of problems. So I just went through that process. I really just did everything the Lean Startup said to do. That was really my, I was just starting to read that book, and I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I need to do, and I just kind of followed it like a textbook. Like that was like, again, like I drink the Kool-Aid, and I tried it out, and it worked out really well for me, and helped me, discover a problem that we had the capability to solve.
yeah, cool. Because like I'm not sure how Montessori schools are structured, but like, what was your outreach program? Did you send a cold email? How long did it take you to get that person who made that decision?
Yeah, well, the great thing about schools, well, private schools specifically, is that lead gen is really easy because, well, depending on the product. So again, because we're not like an education, like I'm always at ed tech meetups and stuff because I'm in the education sector, but we're not an ed tech product, right? We don't like facilitate education. So our customers are the people that literally pick up the phone at the school and have to pick up the phone at the school. So when we started out, we were just cold calling, and we were able to, for every 10 calls, I booked a demo. And because I had a good sense of the problem, and I could at that point speak their language and just quickly say, hey, like, because the person picking up the phone is either the decision maker or a big influencer in the decision. She's going to be the one and it's usually a she, it's always a she, is going to be the one that's using it, day in and day out, and it's going to save her 3 hours, 3 to 5 hours a week of, redundant busy work, So it's really easy to once you understand your profile, and speak to their problems, and get them to check out a solution. It's not that difficult. If you're lucky enough to, if you want to have an easy thing to sell, like sell something to executive assistants or secretaries that answer the phone, as opposed to the CEO. if that's the lesson that's pulled from that, I guess.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah.
All right, and
Thank you. Thanks again for hosting or coming.
You're
to,
welcome.
this
Thanks for
event.
coming.
My name is Christopher, and I'd just like to ask, what would your competitive advantage be? And for example, if a school just chose to email all the parents, there's a search function. They can find all the information they need to. Or for example, Twitter. How would you prevent or keep the market as opposed to like having them move over to a different platform? Thank you.
Yeah. So so it's interesting. Like when you talk. So when we first launched Hubly, again, it was a much we were focused on a broader problem set, and we it was everything was built around a private social network framework. So, and it still is. I mean, that's still there in the platform, although that's not really what we're promoting right now. In any event, so whenever you talk about using social network type tools to a market, everyone's like, well, why wouldn't I just use Facebook? Why wouldn't I just use Twitter? Like, why wouldn't I just do that? And the thing is, like, it's exactly what they are doing, right? That is their problem in that market, meaning, parents can just do this and parents can just do that, but the schools have the problem is that the school is giving them 10 different places to search, and from the school's side, they need the parents to have this information. Like, it's really crucial that the parents know when this field trip is being picked up, or when this thing is happening, or when parent-teacher conferences are. Yeah. Literally, yeah.
But my question was, what if they chose to use only one thing?
If they chose to use, yeah. So the other problem is that schools have communication liability issues, right? So just to name a few, well, like Twitter or Facebook or any of these public channels, I mean, teachers and schools get sued on a daily basis because somebody posted something where that shouldn't have been. So these are quite problematic. So from the school side, on the liability side, they need those features. Like our social network is really similar to how Facebook works, because actually that is the architecture. That's what they are. That's why they're trying to use it, because and they also use Shutterstock and Doodle, and they use like a whole insane list of different tools you see everywhere in these schools. But because they work really well and they're good products, but they all have some issue. But even to your point, they could technically say, okay, everyone's going to use Facebook, but you're going to do it this way, and we're going to train you, and we're going to if they were capable of actually enforcing communication standards across their staff, then there would be less of a case for Hubly. But they're not able to do that because, again, these are teachers that are now running a business, teaching others. They're just they're not managers, and they need to just. It's surprisingly consistent how this personality profile acts across the board. And again, another benefit of learning a particular niche is that, like, when it comes to like the education world, is like teachers and educators they have these very common similarities in person. Like, people that actually stay in this profession and like it and don't want to do anything else, like, they're really consistent, right? Like, it's so much easier when you have a really tightly defined selling persona, as opposed to jumping from industry to industry. Because if you're trying to sell to mechanics, I mean, those people are so different. But what Hubly does would help mechanics too, right? But I don't want to deal with mechanics. Like, I don't know them at all, right? So, like, I mean, maybe I should. I don't know. But, like, I don't know them, So when you niche down, you focus, you learn things that are really surprising and don't seem obvious, like why wouldn't they just use Facebook? Why doesn't the school just get everybody to use Facebook the right way? You know, but they just don't. They can't.
That's a great answer. Thank you. I just have like 2 short follow-ups, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Right. So,
Here all night.
for example, you said Hubbly trains the teachers or the administrators to use the software properly, right? And make communication with parents more consistent. What would prevent them from using what they learned with your software and applying it to, say, Facebook, which costs considerably less?
Because they would have to figure out how to do that.
But you said the architecture is similar, yes?
Yeah, it is. But like they're not going to put in the time that it takes to figure out how to apply it to. I mean, it's not exactly the same, you know. And we offer benefits that Facebook doesn't come with, you know, with the service layer and those other things. Like what they really want is to be in the classroom, and not. They don't want to fiddle around with this stuff at all. They just want it out of their lives. It's a necessary evil to them, right? They know they need it. If they could just completely drop it and sidestep it, they would, but they can't because their customers require it, right? This is so one of the things I always talk about in my sales pitches and everything. I talk about the difference of the demographics between the average the average school administrator. Average age is 49 years old. The average mom that they're marketing to try to get them into the school is 28, 30, and it's a mom. Like all of our marketing, you know, we have a lot of marketing data, and we know that it's over 90% that 90% of the people that engage the enrollment process is moms, right? So the initial engagement. So these 2 demographics are, I mean, their behaviors and their expectations around communication is so different, you know. So this will change over the next decade, but right now, school administrators and parents have wildly different relationships with communication tools, right? And you know, your generation would think the way you think, but 40 and 49 is the average age. So we have customers that are literally in their 70s. These are people that, you know, like need serious hand-holding. And we even offer, for some of the components that they're using, we literally manage it for them. And because they all do the exact same thing, so we basically automate the service layer of it. Because like, they really just, you know, they want to log in and touch this stuff as little as humanly possible, but they know they have to have it. So we present them a solution. They're like, okay, you know, but we had to learn that. Like first we were just selling them the platform and trying to get them to use it and trying to train them on way too much stuff at one time. You know, so that's, again, by narrowing down by narrowing the scope of what we were offering to this market, we were able to get them successful with we offer a few coaching sessions with every new onboarding, just to get them, like, it's like skills and drills. Like we do a Zoom call and we watch their screen. We're like, click here, click there. We like literally coach them through where to click to log in and stuff, like, and we do it a few times just to get muscle memory. Like that's our market, you know. So we're not selling to millennials or, you know, the younger folk.
Thanks for the clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Very good questions. We can take a couple more questions. There's a gentleman over there who wants to ask a question.
Hi there.
Hi.
My name is Flavian. Great talk.
Thank you.
You mentioned using a lot of data to find your beachhead.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, how did you go about identifying something, as you say, big enough,
Yeah.
small enough, but big enough?
Well, yeah, because we were, and this is something that we were getting to that point where I was saying, okay, I need to pick public or private, and then I read the book, The Crossing the Chasm, and I was like, who would my beachhead be? And I was like, and I just started looking at our customers, and And as you know, as I was, because I was in the process of marketing and selling and onboarding and all that stuff, I just started seeing this pattern with Montessori schools for whatever reason, you know. And then so I started, you know, just interviewing them specifically, trying to understand, like, you know, like why they seem to be easier to sell to, you know what I mean? So like, so, and then I looked at that market to say, is it big enough? Does it have referencing, you know, lateral markets that we can easily move adjacently to? And it checked off all the boxes.
And is this at the time you were doing the side hustle or full time?
No, by this time I was full time on Hubbly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say we, is it yourself as the founder, or you have a
Yeah, I mean,
founder,
so when I say we, I mean, it wasn't only me and the company. So I've been growing the team since, you know, since I went full time. I've always had people joining the company. So I started off with like an SDR person doing cold calling and one customer support person, and then it just kind of grew from there.
And one other question with the, early on, you mentioned conferences, you mentioned associations and whatnot.
Mhm.
Did you do anything around the branding, the awareness, content
Yeah,
marketing?
so branding,
And how early did you
yes.
start
So branding was never been my concern because we don't grow our product through branding. We grow a product through lead generation. So what our homepage looks like and says doesn't really play a role in the sale, right? So like you have to pick your marketing strategy based on how your customers make a buying decision. In our case, it is through a sales call. So my marketing strategy is laser focused on getting the right person in the school to, I mean, it's been evolving over time, but what it is now is I target, you know, Montessori owners and directors and heads of schools, get them to attend a webinar, and out of the webinar, they book a consultation with me, and every step along the way, I'm trying to basically say, if you're not a director, owner, or just take a hike, I don't want to talk to you, basically, in nicer words. So like, I lost my train of thought. What was your question? Branding. So branding doesn't play really much of a role in that, as long as we're not offending people or turning them away, right? So the fact that it's called Hubbly doesn't matter. Whatever my logo looks like doesn't really matter to them when they're making a buying decision, right? What matters to them is the value propositions that they're seeing all along the funnel, and that they think that I know what I'm talking about in the webinar, and then in the sales call, I know what I'm talking about, and that they trust me, and that I'm credible, and that I've got social proof because we've got a whole bunch of customers and these strategic partnership affiliations, and all of that is what sells it. You could say that's branding, like some of that sort of...
I was about to.
Yeah, well, some of that bumps into branding, but it's not a branding strategy. Yeah. That's sales, meaning like every human being makes makes a buying decision the same way. Yeah. Like wherever you are, we all go through the same cognitive model when we make a buying decision, whether it's a $1 Coke or it's a $10,000, tuition, for your child. So like the size of the decision determines how. The size of the decision determines how long that process will be, how long that person psychologically is going to take to go from step to step to step. And really, it's just a process of the customer building trust, right? So with Coca-Cola, right, the biggest brand in the world, all they do is branding marketing, right? Like they don't do lead gen. You don't have to you don't have to fly to Atlanta and book a meeting with the CEO of Coca-Cola to buy a drink, right? Like their customers look at a wall of 100 different drink options multiple times a day sometimes, and Coke just wants their customer to spot the red in their logo and think about that cute polar bear in the commercial that they were interrupted with 30 times that day. And that's how, and which is crazy because Coke is the biggest brand in the world, and they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on branding, right? Could you imagine anybody forgetting that Coke exists? But the minute they stop spending that money, they'll cease to exist. Pepsi will just completely eat them, like, right? So I've never worried about branding, because that's not how we make. It's not how our customers. They don't need branding to make a buying decision.
So in your case with the data, it was really drilling down on your monthly recurring revenue and seeing exactly where and what it meant to get to that decision of the beachhead.
Well, it was, yeah. I mean, it was the result of it on our revenue for sure. It was more about how quickly I got them to how. I was watching the metrics I was looking at wasn't really MRR to validate the beachhead. It was the different conversion rates of our funnel, and ultimately a gut feeling on how much easier it was to close as I started to really focus on just the Montessori market. And also just like, because we were in sales calls, right? So I'm talking to these people, and when I started adjusting my slide deck to, again, focus on Montessori schools, the response I got, even just hearing their response, was like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you get me, you know? Like, your customers want to know that you get them and that you're there to slay their dragons, you know? And so it's a lot easier to do that, again, when you're dealing with a more narrow profile. Or not necessarily a narrow profile, but a more specific, unvarying profile.
Yeah. Great, thanks.
All right, I guess that is it for tonight. Anyone else have any questions? Oh, one more. Okay, that would be the last one.
All right.
It's,
You're getting your workout tonight.
yeah, making me walk back and forth in heels. It's okay, I'm used to it.
I'll wear the heels next time. No, I won't. Take that back. I'm going to edit that out.
We appreciate you being here. My name is Thomas. Just as kind of a higher level type question, just kind of more general, more philosophical.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned in your last answer how you prepared your slide deck and your presentation. And what stuck out to me almost immediately in the interview portion was where you mentioned entrepreneurship. So could you speak a little bit about how you prepared your slides and your presentations, because you're obviously very knowledgeable about your market segment, how you prepare that and how you present it, and just kind of take us through how that process works for you?
You mean my sales deck?
Either sales deck or investors decks, or...
Okay, because they're pretty different. And so
sure.
like I you know, it might be helpful to pick one. Just so, I mean,
Investors
I'm happy.
decks.
Investor deck. Okay,
Perfect.
so I do have a lot of experience raising money. I haven't raised that much for Hubbly, but I have raised for other companies in the past, I would say but I have gone through some phases where I really did start like building a deck and focusing on it, and I had to do it at different times. Like we were in the DMZ, so I had to put a deck together to get into the DMZ, and then to get different programs and grants or whatnot. It's it's a very similar process. So one thing I would say is very interesting is important to know is that there's a big difference. Kind of to what I said at the beginning, there's a big difference between a sales deck and your investor deck. So my investor deck says that we're in the business of private school tuition processing. And as a product, we're a CRM for private schools. But our business model, really we're in the business of private school tuition processing, because that's a way bigger business opportunity. And we've validated that and blah, 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 blah. But I don't talk about that ever with our prospects because they don't need to know. They need to know what the price is to use our platform. So, as an example, but it took me a while to learn that the process of building a deck is It's like a full-time job, and that's why I haven't done it, because I've always been able to. I've always kind of defaulted to like growing the business, and I'm really good at sales and building sales and teams and stuff like that. So it's like, why wouldn't I do that if I get to pick one? If I can make that happen, I'll just keep on doing that as long as possible. But again, the thing that I found very challenging with building sales decks is who you're doing it for. So. You really have to. You need to have so many versions of it, and you really have to consider who you're presenting to. Are they an angel? Are they an angel in Canada, in Toronto? Are they an angel in the Valley? Because here you talk to an angel and you're like, I'm looking for 600,000. They're like, you should be asking for like 150. And then if you go to the Valley, you say, I'm looking for 600,000. They'll say, don't talk to me unless you're looking for 2.5 million. Like, what are you, stupid? You know what I mean? Like literally, they'll just say, you're stupid, go away, you know? Like, it's like, and you're like, whoa, what? You know? And so you just, you learn that stuff, you know? But that's been my, my biggest takeaway from that process is like really focus, I would say, kind of niche down on who you want to raise money from right now, and do your best to get in front, do your best to figure out who that should be and what that investor profile is, right? Because it is sales. It's really the same thing. So you're really it's like, if we're looking to raise money from angels, figure out how to raise money from, angels in Toronto, figure out how to do that, but if you're looking for VC, that's a totally different deck and a totally different approach. And, and because that person is looking for different kinds of returns, and they're looking they want you to spend money in very different ways, right? And it's like, wow, it's really shocking, so it also has to, you also have to align it with how you want to run a business, right? Like I lean towards bootstrapping, right? Not that I'm against the idea of raising money, I just haven't needed to, and it's been, it's a full-time job. So until I can actually do it full-time, I'm not going to, right? Unless I make that choice and never needed to. So, yeah, does that help at all?
It does.
Those have been my learning, opportunities from trying to, hone a deck.
Okay, all right. I guess that would be it for this evening and this meetup.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all for coming. And if you haven't joined the Toronto SaaS Meetup group, please do join so you can stay updated for our next meetup. So I guess our next meetup is going to be sometime in August. We haven't decided the date yet.
Yeah, we'll let you all know. Please join us on Meetup, if you haven't. Also, we have a Slack group that we don't have like a registration thing here, but we can invite you all to the Slack group. Toronto SaaS Meetup.slack.com, I guess is what it is. But if you connected to us on Meetup, we send that out as a message through Meetup as well regularly to join our Slack group. But so I say, everybody raise your hands. Are you all on Meetup.com? Yeah. Okay, and have you all joined us there? Okay, so.
All right, that's awesome.
We'll keep you updated there. Awesome.
All right, see you again all next time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Later.